Bobby Brown's journey has always been full of surprises. He started as a member of New Edition, then went on to have a famous and often difficult romance with Whitney Houston, and even boldly claimed he taught Michael Jackson how to do the moonwalk. When people think of Bobby, they often remember his wild side more than his hit songs. His life has been full of ups and downs, and you might not believe just how crazy things were behind the scenes. Hold on tight, because we are about to share the full story of Bobby Brown's rise and fall, from a boy band star to solo chaos. When Bobby Brown left New Edition in 1986, it was not just about money or wanting more control over his music, it was about power. Yes, the group was not getting paid well, and Bobby wanted to have his own success, but there was more to it. Those close to Bobby say his rebellious attitude and growing confidence played a huge role in his decision. It was not just about financial problems. It was about Bobby wanting to be his own boss. From the very beginning, Bobby was different. New Edition was seen as a clean-cut group for young fans, but Bobby had a different style. He wanted to push limits, take chances, and live life his way, even if it meant clashing with the people who helped him get started. Behind the scenes, Bobby was becoming harder to control. The people in charge of his career, like record label managers, saw him as someone who could not be easily managed. Bobby's disagreements with the other members of New Edition became more common, and it was clear that he was on his own path. The members of New Edition were not exactly happy about Bobby's growing wild behavior either. In 1986, things finally reached a breaking point. After many arguments and rising tensions, Bobby was voted out of the group. Fans were told it was a friendly split, but in reality, the problems had been building up for a long time. Bobby was not just asked to leave, he was pushed out. But instead of letting this setback stop him, Bobby used it as a reason to prove everyone wrong. And that is exactly what he did. Bobby went solo, and almost overnight, he went from being a former boy band member to one of the biggest stars in R&B. His 1988 album, Don't Be Cruel, changed everything. Songs like My Prerogative and Every Little Step ruled the charts, and for a while, it seemed like Bobby had everything figured out: money, fame, and a style that was bold, raw, and unlike anything else in R&B at that time. But here is the thing about success. It only brings out what is already there. Bobby's bad boy image did not go away just because he became a solo artist. If anything, it got worse. His wild partying lifestyle became famous, his relationship made headlines, and his name was always linked to controversy. And then there was Whitney Houston, the princess of pop, America's sweetheart, with a voice so powerful it could make anyone cry. To the world, she was perfect. And Bobby, well, Bobby was trouble. So, how did these two complete opposites become one of the most talked about couples of their time? And more importantly, was Bobby really the one who... Did Bobby Brown lead Whitney Houston down a dark path? Or is there more to their story than what the media wanted us to believe? Get ready, because what comes next is a story filled with love, scandal, heartbreak, and drama that no one saw coming. Bobby Brown, the chaos, the controversy, and the crown he refused to let go. By the time Bobby released his second album, Don't Be Cruel, in 1988, it was clear that he was not just another R&B artist. He became a huge force in the music world, a performer with an energy that made him stand out, even among other big stars. Songs like My Prerogative and Every Little Step topped the charts, and Bobby's confidence was impossible to ignore. The album sold over 12 million copies worldwide, making Bobby a music legend. But behind all the success, things were not always as perfect as they seemed. Bobby's reputation as the bad boy was well known, and he never tried to hide it. His personal life was always in the news, and not all of it was pretty. His image was constantly under attack. Wild parties, rumors of drug use, and his very public relationship with Whitney Houston. His behavior off stage, from his bold statements to his unpredictable public appearances, often seemed to take attention away from his music. But was this really self-sabotage, or was there something more going on? Rumors about Bobby's struggles with substance abuse started to spread in the late 80s, but his public image did not seem to suffer much. After all, the bad boy persona was part of his charm. It made him even more interesting to his fans. But behind the scenes, things were starting to fall apart. Bobby Brown always stayed true to himself, without apology. But things began to change The pressure of fame, the breakdown of his marriage to Whitney Houston, and his growing problems with addiction started to affect his career. By the early 1990s, Bobby found himself on the outside of the music industry, which seemed to have no problem turning his personal struggles into gossip and tabloid stories. So, what exactly happened to Bobby after the success of Don't Be Cruel? Was it his wild lifestyle that caused his downfall, or did the people in the music industry work to bring him down? Some believe Bobby was never afraid to stand up for himself. He wanted more control over his music, his image, and his career. The way he carried himself and refused to follow the rules of the music industry may have made him seem rebellious. In an industry where following the rules is important for success, Bobby's refusal to play along likely upset a lot of people. Bobby's relationship with New Edition, the group that helped him get his start, became troubled after he left. He felt limited by the group's image and wanted the freedom to go in his own direction. Bobby says the other members of New Edition did not fully support his dreams of going solo, and this caused tension that led to him being pushed out of the group. Bobby's version of the story has stayed the same. He was ready to make his own way, but his vision did not match the group's direction. After leaving New Edition, Bobby was determined to prove that he could succeed on his own. Bobby was determined to succeed on his own, and it did not take long for his solo career to rise. However, despite the success of Don't Be Cruel, Bobby's personal life kept getting worse. His marriage to Whitney Houston became a constant topic for the media. Their relationship, filled with addiction and the press constantly following them, took the spotlight away from his career. The press followed them everywhere, sharing every detail of their personal lives for the world to see. But did the way the media showed Bobby and Whitney's marriage affect his career in ways people do not fully understand? Some say Bobby's problems were not entirely his fault. The way the media painted him as a villain, especially with his relationship to Whitney, helped create a story that took attention away from his music. Some even believe that the media played a role in how the public saw him, focusing more on his personal issues than his music. Even with all the challenges, Bobby kept working. In 1992, he released Bobby, which included the hit single Humping Around. But the album's success did not last long. Even though Bobby was still a talented artist, his personal struggles and how the public saw him made things harder for him. By the late 1990s, Bobby's career seemed to be in constant trouble. Rumors about money issues, substance abuse, and legal problems were always around. In 1996, Bobby was even arrested for assaulting Whitney during a fight at their home. His personal life had turned into a never-ending scandal. This certainly affected Bobby's career. He was no longer the unstoppable star of the late 1980s. Now, he was more likely to make headlines for his problems than for his music. But even when everything seemed to fall apart, Bobby refused to give up. In the early 2000s, he rejoined New Edition, teaming up with former bandmates Ralph Tresvant and Johnny Gill to form the group Heads of State. They hoped to bring back the magic of their earlier days. However, despite the nostalgic effort, Heads of State never gained the momentum it needed. Bobby's struggles with substance abuse were far from over, and his personal challenges continued to hold him back, preventing him from returning to the spotlight. So, what really happened to Bobby Brown? Did he experience an unavoidable fall from grace, or was there more behind the scenes? It is clear that Bobby was not just another artist who could not handle the pressure. He was a man with a strong vision, someone who refused to fit into the box others tried to place him in. But Bobby was not alone in his struggles. He had a legacy, a group of people, both fans and fellow artists, who believed in him. His story is not only about destruction, but also about resilience. After all, this is the same Bobby Brown who taught the king of pop how to moonwalk. He was a legend in his own right, a powerful force in music who could not be ignored, even when his life seemed to be falling apart. So, was Bobby Brown a victim of the music industry? Or is there more to his story? Was Bobby's downfall caused by his own choices? Maybe the answer is not so simple. It could be a mix of both. As Bobby himself might say, that is just how the world works. But one thing is for sure, his story is far from over. Bobby and Whitney's love story did not end with their divorce. The world had watched their intense relationship with all its highs and lows. But even after they went their separate ways, their story continued in ways no one expected. People had always been fascinated by Whitney and Bobby, but now the headlines shifted from their messy fights and reality TV drama to something much darker. The years after their split were difficult for both of them. Whitney, once America's pop princess, struggled to get back to her former greatness. Bobby, on the other hand, faced his own share of tragedies. After the divorce, Whitney worked hard to rebuild her life and career. In 2009, she released Look to You, an album that debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, showing that people still loved her. But behind the scenes, things were not as hopeful. Rumors spread that Whitney had not fully escaped the demons she faced during her marriage to Bobby. Sources said her struggle with addiction continued, and even though she had brief moments of sobriety, she still struggled to stay clean. Whitney struggled to stay clean. Industry insiders said she started missing studio sessions and had trouble with live performances. Some even said that her once powerful voice, the one that had made her untouchable, was no longer the same. Her last big public appearance was at a pre-Grammy party in February 2012, where people noticed her behavior seemed off. Just days later, on February 11, 2012, the world was shocked by the news of her sudden death. She was found unresponsive in the bathtub of her Beverly Hilton hotel room. The official cause of death was accidental drowning with heart disease, and cocaine use listed as other factors that played a role. It marked the end of an era. The woman who once ruled the music world, whose voice had defined a generation, was gone. For Bobby, the loss hit harder than anyone could imagine. Even though their relationship had been full of struggles, Bobby was deeply affected by Whitney's passing. He mourned the loss of his ex-wife publicly, but there was someone else who felt the loss even more: their daughter, Bobby Christina. Bobby Christina had grown up in the harsh light of the public eye, with every part of her life being watched and criticized. Now, at just 18 years old, she was left without her mother. In the months after Whitney's death, rumors started to spread about Bobby Christina's mental state. Some people said she had turned to drugs, while others believed she was overwhelmed by the weight of grief and pressure. Then, there was the surprise of Bobby Christina's controversial relationship with Nick. In 2015, Bobby Christina's relationship with Nick Gordon, whom Whitney had raised like a son, caused a big stir in the media. Some people found it strange, while others thought it was troubling. Bobby Brown, her father, did not approve, and there were rumors that the Houston family felt the same way. However, Bobby Christina did not seem to care about the opinions of others. She was in love and was determined to follow her heart. But then, tragedy struck again. Almost 3 years after Whitney's death, Bobby Christina was found unconscious in a bathtub, just like her mother had been. She was rushed to the hospital and placed in a medically induced coma. Despite all efforts to save her, Bobby Christina passed away in July 2015 at just 22 years old. The cause of death was a combination of drugs and drowning. The way she died was almost the same as Whitney's, and it was impossible not to notice the painful similarities. Once again, another young life was lost too soon. After Bobby Christina's death, many people asked, could it have been prevented? And was Nick Gordon to blame? Lawsuits were filed and accusations were made. In 2016, a judge found Nick Gordon legally responsible for Bobby Christina's death in a civil case, ordering him to pay $36 million to her estate. But by then, the damage had already been done. Bobby Brown, still grieving for his daughter, shared his thoughts. He said, "She will be with me forever. She is not going anywhere. It is not a mystery to me. The same thing that happened to my daughter is what happened to Whitney. There is only one person who was around both times. I will not say his name. He knows what happened." Bobby Brown knows what happened that night, but he does not talk much about it. He often told his daughter to let go, but he could not have known how things would turn out. Nick Gordon also could not escape the weight of tragedy. In 2020, Nick was found dead from a heroin overdose at just 30 years old. And just like that, the main people in this sad story, Whitney, Bobby Christina, and Nick, were all gone, lost to addiction, controversy, and events that still do not feel right to many. Through all the pain, Bobby Brown is still here. He has faced so much loss, fought his own struggles, and somehow managed to survive when many others could not. But at what cost? The world still questions what role Bobby played in Whitney's troubles. Was he really the bad influence everyone made him out to be? Or was he just another victim of a toxic world and personal struggles that neither he nor Whitney could escape? One thing is clear, this story is not finished. As long as Bobby Brown is still alive, people will keep watching, waiting to see if there is more to his journey than we know. Bobby Brown is more than just a name in the news. He is a man, a legend, and maybe even a story of redemption. After decades of chaos, loss, and public judgment, many people thought Bobby Brown would fade into the background by now. But he has not. Despite all the challenges, he is still standing. Time and again, Bobby has shown that he is a survivor. Now, at 55 years old, the question still remains: has Bobby Brown truly found peace? After years of struggles with addiction, public shame, and heartbreak, could he finally have found the strength to live a life without the chaos? If you had asked anyone in the early 2000s if Bobby Brown would ever get clean and find a new way to live, most people would have said no. Yet, here he is, still going, still fighting, still living. For a long time, addiction followed. Bobby like a shadow. It was always part of his life. But against all odds, Bobby is now sober. He has worked very hard to stay that way. In recent years, Bobby has spoken honestly about his journey to sobriety. He has shared that the tragic deaths of his daughter, Bobby Christina, and his son, Bobby Jr., were wake-up calls for him. Losing 2 children in similar ways was something he could not ignore. He admitted that the pain of their loss forced him to look at himself and understand that if he did not change, he might be next. Staying sober has not been easy. Bobby has explained that addiction does not disappear overnight. It is a daily struggle that he fights with the help of his wife, Alicia Etheridge, and his remaining children. Even with all the hard work he has done, Bobby still carries a great deal of pain from his past, the losses, the failed marriage, and the public criticism. Some people still wonder if Bobby Brown will ever truly be free of his past. Now, talking about Alicia Etheridge, many believe that she is the woman who finally helped Bobby turn his life around. Bobby and Alicia have known each other since the 1990s, but their romance did not begin until much later. She came into his life when he was at one of his lowest points, divorced, struggling with addiction, and facing legal troubles. Unlike others, Alicia did not support a wild or reckless lifestyle. People say that she set clear boundaries, showed Bobby a different way to live, and helped him see that he could change his life for the better. Alicia established clear boundaries early on, making it obvious that she would not tolerate the behavior that had defined Bobby Brown's past relationships. From the look of it, Bobby understood her message completely. In 2012, they got married, and many say that she has been the steady support he needed. She has stood by his side throughout his journey to sobriety, helped him rebuild his career, and given him a sense of stability that had been missing from much of his life. Not everyone believes that Alicia is the perfect ending to Bobby Brown's story. Some fans still believe that the love he had with Whitney was genuine, and that no other relationship will ever match the passion or the chaos of their marriage. However, whether people agree or not, Alicia is the one who remains by Bobby's side now, and it appears that she is here to stay. From scandal to legacy, the question remains: how will Bobby Brown be remembered? When everything is said and done, will he be known as the R&B icon who helped shape a new era in music with his undeniable talent and stage presence? Or will he always be remembered as the troubled star whose personal life often overshadowed his success? The truth is, his legacy will likely be a combination of both. Bobby Brown's story is not just about music. It is about excess, love, addiction, loss, and survival. He is the man who had everything, lost it all, and against all odds is still standing. His impact on R&B is undeniable, and his album Don't Be Cruel continue. Bobby Brown helped create one of the best R&B albums ever. Songs like My Prerogative and Every Little Step defined a whole era. Without Bobby, there would be no New Jack Swing, which changed the music world. But at the same time, you cannot forget the scandals, arrests, and the struggles with drugs that made him more famous for his troubles than his music. Even though the music world has changed, Bobby's influence is still strong. Today, artists like Usher and Chris Brown say Bobby inspired them, showing his style is still important. What is Bobby doing now? Despite everything that has happened, Bobby Brown is still moving forward. He now focuses on his family, staying sober, and giving back. After losing his daughter, Bobby started the Bobby Christina Serenity House, an organization that helps people who face domestic violence. This is a big change for Bobby, especially since he once faced domestic violence charges himself. Bobby has also talked about working on new music. He may never be as big on the charts as he was in the 1980s and 1990s, but he still has things he wants to say. Whether fans will enjoy his new music is still unknown, But one thing Bobby knows is how to surprise people. Bobby has also found a new place in reality TV and documentaries. His recent documentary, biography, Bobby Brown, gave fans a close, personal look at his life. After all these years, people still find his story interesting. There is talk that Bobby Brown may write a second memoir, one that goes deeper into his struggles with addiction, grief, and redemption. If his first book, Every Little Step, My Story, was any sign, then this next book is likely to be very revealing. We should also remember his acting career. Bobby has made guest appearances on several shows, taking roles that seem to mirror his own life journey. After all the chaos, scandals, and tragedies, where does Bobby Brown's story end? In truth, his story does not have an end. Whether you love him or hate him, one thing is clear: Bobby Brown's name will never be forgotten, and he would not have it any other way. Do you believe that Bobby Brown's chapter has closed? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please press the like button. If you are new to the channel, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you receive updates on our latest uploads. Thank you for watching.